Today, the biggest danger in terms of preserving the memory of the Holocaust is not Holocaust denial, but rather Holocaust distortion. In other words, the fight in the West, at least, we're talking about the Western world, not the Muslim world, because in the Muslim world, Holocaust denial is alive and well and is supported by, in certain cases, by governments and comes with the authority of government and the financing of government. But in the Western world, there's no normative political party or social organization which disseminates these lies or supports these lies in any way, shape, or form. But what we're facing today is a new problem. A problem which I call Holocaust distortion, and which basically refers to the efforts to rewrite the narrative of World War II and the Holocaust in such a way as to, for example, hide the responsibility of certain peoples, elements of society, for their participation in Holocaust crimes. Now, this is a problem which is particularly problematic in Eastern Europe, and you have to remember that only in Eastern Europe did collaboration with the Nazis include active participation in mass murder. That was not the case outside of Eastern Europe. Outside of Eastern Europe, Jews were rounded up, were persecuted, rounded up, and were sent to be murdered by the French, the Belgians, the Dutch, the Norwegians, the Greeks, the Italians, etc. But those people did not murder the Jews. What they did was accessory to murder, but not murder itself. But in Eastern Europe, in Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Ukraine, Belarus, Croatia, parts of Poland, the locals were actively integrated into the mechanism of mass annihilation. Now, these countries were not liberated, didn't become democracies after the end of the war. They were under the communists. And only when the Soviet Union crumbled did these people become independent democracies. And they are having a very hard time telling the truth about the Holocaust because the story is a very difficult one. In a country like Lithuania, a large percentage of the Jews were actually murdered by Lithuanians. Of course, it wouldn't have happened without the Nazis. But once the Nazis arrived, these people and all strata of Lithuanian society collaborated, from the political leadership, from the clergy, down to the shooters. So these countries are trying to do two things. One is to hide or minimize their own role in the crimes of the Holocaust. And second is to try and convince Europe and the world that communism was just as bad as Nazism. And that they too were victims. They were victims of a second genocide that took place, the genocide of the peoples of Eastern Europe at the hands of the communists. And what they're trying to do also now, for example, is to try and push for a joint Memorial Day for all the victims of totalitarian regimes. In other words, the victims of the Nazis and the victims of the communists. And there's a danger that if such a proposal is accepted, what do we need an International Holocaust Day for? A day for all the victims is more inclusive, more universal, and might appeal to a lot of people. And listen, how many Memorial Days can you have? So this is a serious danger. It's also another reason that they're trying to do this is because a lot of the heroes of the anti-Soviet resistance in Eastern Europe were involved in murdering Jews during the Holocaust. And we say, if someone murdered Jews during the Holocaust, that should disqualify them from being heroes and being glorified. And this is a problem in countries, again, like Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia. We see this. And unfortunately, we don't see the government, our government or other governments, except for Russia, dealing with this problem, fighting against it. And the only reason the Russians are dealing with it is for their own politics against those areas which were once part of the Soviet Union. So I'll give you an example. It's something that bothers me very much, I have to say. Joachim Gauck, who just finished his tenure as president of Germany, was invited to Israel for Yom HaShoah for the closing ceremony at Beit Lochamei Getot. Joachim Gauck is the only German who signed the Prague Declaration of June 3rd, 2008, which basically supports the double genocide theory, that there were two genocides, one of the Nazis against the Jews, the other one of the communists against the peoples of Eastern Europe. And this is a declaration which harms the memory of the Holocaust. In other words, it undermines the uniqueness of the Holocaust. It basically says the Holocaust, it's terrible, it's just another tragedy. So this is the person that you invite to Israel for Yom HaShoah? I think, my sense is that the people in Israel had no idea that he signed this declaration. And I would say to President Gauck, upon arrival in Israel, President Gauck, or former President Gauck, I think this is the place to announce in very clear, unequivocal language that the Holocaust and the crimes of communism are not equal. And the crimes of communism, as terrible as they were, are not genocide. And I decided to take my name off the Prague Declaration. Thank you very much.